Hello, my name is Kiriath, and today we are going to talk about a nice little rumour, what I have been sent. Of course, it is just a rumour, do not go overboard, treat it with the same healthy scepticism that you treat all other things that you are sceptical about. It's not the word of God, it is not a holy statement that was given to me to deliver to you, the people. No, it's just a rumour. But it's about the Chaos Knights Codex and the models we should expect to receive at the same time as that codex. And to be honest, I am leaning more towards plausible than bullshit on this one, for a couple of different reasons. One of which is that the person who sent me this has had a pretty good track record. They were spot on with some of the contrast paint stuff, and they also corroborated some of the October stuff as well. And in terms of kind of successful leak or rumour delivery, the October stuff that I got was, for the most part, pretty spot on. There were bits missing here and there, but there was nothing that was completely wrong. In fact, things like the vehicle names and just overall purpose of the different vehicles was dead straight for that particular batch of releases. So I am inclined to show more trust towards this one person than perhaps some, but it's still just a rumour. Just remember that. It's still just a rumour. Have salt, essentially. Loads of salt. Actual, poisoning levels of salt. So, we know that there's going to be a Chaos Knights Codex. We know it is on its way, and we also know that we've got a couple of Chaos Knights coming with it. We've got the Despoiler and the Ravager? Something like that. Just different named versions of the Knights that we already have, one of which is behind me, looming ominously. What they've said is that we are not just going to get those Knights kits, we are going to get essentially a Chaos version of all of them. So the Castellan stuff and the Armiger stuff, those have Chaos versions as well. Those will be coming out with the Codex. It will be a proper full release. It's not going to be a case of you can get the Chaos versions of that, but you'll have to make your own Armigers, you'll have to make your own version of the Castellan, you have to convert those. You will actually have those kits, proper Chaosified versions of those kits at the time of release of the Codex. Now, of course, there's nothing they can particularly send me to give me photographic evidence that this shit exists, but I am inclined to lean towards this being plausible rather than bullshit. And even if they didn't have a decent track record before, I'm inclined to lean towards it because it just really makes a fair amount of sense that we would have that to begin with. For a start, this is going to be an actual Chaos Knights Codex. We know this. And generally speaking, with and a couple of notable, in fact maybe just one notable exception, thinking about it, units that do not have models no longer appear in codexes. The number of characters and options that used to be available in old codexes and were available in indexes, they were stripped out massively when it came to the release of the 8th edition codexes. Things like Tech Marines on bikes and all that kind of stuff. It all just went. It disappeared. If there was no model being sold for it by Games Workshop, that option was no longer in the codex at all. The notable exception to this, of course, is the Grandmaster in Nemesis Dreadnought, which is the example I bring up every time I get irritated about the fact that a bunch of options were stripped out because you don't get actual just out-of-the-box models for them anymore. Because for everything else, it was, well, you can't buy this, and so you cannot have it in the codex. That's just how it is. Except for the Nemesis Dreadnought, the Grandmaster in Nemesis Dreadnought. You can totally have that. You'll need to buy the kit and convert it yourself, but that's fine. Still annoys me. Still a silly double standard. I don't really know why it was done that way, but there you go. But in the vast majority of cases, you do not have stuff in codexes that you cannot buy. Now, technically, you can buy the Armiger, you can buy the Castellan, and so it could be argued, well, those kits do exist. They are available, you can purchase them, but you would need to convert them to be all chaosified. That is true, but this isn't the same instance as an index. Currently, with the Renegade Knights Index, that's essentially all you can do. You can't do anything else because there's no other way of doing it. Unless you go to Forge World and buy an Imperial Knight, a Chaos Knight kit from Forge World, but that only applies to one specific type of knight. That only applies to one chassis, if you will. If you want to do it for Armigers and Castellans, you cannot do that. It's not possible. And so you have to do it yourself. With the release of a codex, given the current attitude towards, units that do not have a specific kit, which is that they're not in the Codex, I would be actually a little bit surprised if we didn't see at least the announcement of Chaos Armigers and Chaos Castellans, because otherwise that again is like a double standard towards all the other codexes whereby options were totally stripped out. There's also the fact that this is going to be a pretty big release. I mean, I know it's just a Chaos versions of Knights, but the thing is, it's already popular enough and it's already a kind of big enough idea that they have made that happen to begin with. It suggests to me that this isn't going to be like a half-arsed thing of, well, we did an index, we might as well give them a codex as well. Well, no, they've already made pretty significant changes to the Knights themselves in order to, fulfill that role of being Chaos Knights. There's also the thing of looking at the general method of production, or at least the timeline of production for Games Workshop stuff. To be honest, it's difficult to tell when they might have started working on actual, separate kit Chaos Knights. It's difficult to tell. It could be that they released the Imperial Knights, found that they were such a massive success that immediately thought, we need to make Chaos versions of this. Given how many people bought that stuff and how popular they were, I have no difficulty in believing that they were kind of slotted into a schedule. Perhaps people who had worked on the Imperial Knights themselves were essentially given the side task of, hey, make these Chaos. Given that we know there's a good couple of years between like conception and release for different products, that timeline does kind of fit in that even if there was a bit of delay before deciding to do the Chaos version of Imperial Knights, that would still kind of work with what we've seen for the Chaos Knight stuff so far. Now, the benefit of looking at it that way, is that when it comes to the Armigers and the Castellans, if the times if the different time points met up properly, it's not unreasonable to think that Chaos versions of those would be developed alongside the existing kits. If they'd already decided that they were going to do that, if they'd already decided to do a Chaos Knights Codex, then it's not out of the realms of possibility that they could have been worked on at the same time. The thing that throws a spanner in the works a little bit there is the fact that it took a while for us to get a Renegade Knight index. That very much felt like a bit of an afterthought, like well, you guys have asked for this, so here you go. You can have this because you want it and we want to give you something. That's the only bit that throws all of it off. That's the only bit that makes me a little bit suspicious of whether there would have been work started on those yet or not. I mean, it would kind of make sense that there would be. It would kind of fit into the idea of them being prepared to release a Chaos Knights Codex with a good build-up of time. But whether it's actually worked out like that in the real world is a different story. And in a way, doing a Chaos Knights Codex isn't really going to be that much of a challenge to begin with. I mean, you've already got the basis of it with the index, and given the nature of the Knights, and the fact that they are very much just mirrored versions, it's not the same as Chaos Space Marines and Space Marines, for instance. There's a significant divergence of a load of stuff like vehicles and characters and profile, stuff like that. Yeah, this time of Space Marines might be the same, but they divert very heavily away from each other in terms of all the other options they have available outside of just your standard Space Marine. Imperial Knights is not quite like that because they are still pretty much exactly the same thing. So the amount of effort required to actually build out the stats and the abilities, I don't think would take anywhere near as much work because it's not going to be that different. A lot of the lore and the background and stuff, that'll be different, but the actual unit profiles and stuff won't be that different. I mean, they're currently not that different, so why would they change it significantly for a codex? I don't really think they would. Overall, to be honest, it seems more likely than not that we will get at least some news of Armigers and Castellans, along with the Imperial Knights that we've already seen, the Chaos Knights we've already seen. Whether we will see them on the day of release for the codex, that is another matter entirely. I think that's optimistic, to be honest. I would like to think that that's the case, but I'm not entirely sure that it will be. In terms of actually having it all filled out, as we go along, that seems incredibly likely. A lot of the time what we tend to find, and I mean this just as a community collectively, as a group of people invested in this hobby, those of us who pay attention to rumours, a lot of the time the substance is there, but the timing is off. I can thoroughly believe for this one that there will be Chaos versions of the Castellan and the Armiger. That makes complete sense. I can believe that they will be not that far after the Codex is released. I can also believe that they would be announced with the Codex. To be honest, the only thing I'm struggling with is the whole timing of all the way this has been put together. And it makes me think that perhaps the inaccuracy for this one, should any of it turn out to be true, the inaccuracy would be that they would be released at the same time. I don't think that that is going to be the case. But overall, it seems pretty plausible. It seems pretty plausible, and there's nothing in there that strikes me as being like wish listy nonsense, which frankly a lot of the rumours have been fairly recently, let's be honest. I mean, just, entire chapters just getting their own codex and, bringing back an entire, creating an entire extra wave of primaries just to fulfill a particular chapter's tactics and stuff. It's like, this feels more realistic. I mean, admittedly, not as exciting, because it's not mad shit like the White Scars are getting their own codex along with an entire range of Primaris bikers. But more realistic generally does tend to also mean more accurate as well at the end of the day. So yeah, that is what I've been passed on. As always, I leave the judgment entirely up to you. I've shared my opinion, you know what I think. What do you think? Anything to it? Obviously true? Obviously untrue? Hints of truth, but timing a little bit off, which is where I'm sitting on it. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Thank you very much for watching. As I've said in the last few videos, if you want to support the channel in some way, there's a couple of different ways to do it. There is a Patreon link in the description down below. YouTube is a hilarious place where adverts are worth nothing currently, so if you wish to help out in that way, you can do. You don't have to. I'm not going to force you. I'm not your mum. However, there is another way if you don't want to do that, which is the Element Games affiliate link that I have in the description as well, whereby you click it, you buy the stuff you want from Element Games, and I just get a little something for that. You don't spend any extra money. In fact, their stuff is 15 to 25% less cost-wise than if you buy from Games Workshop direct, so you save a bit and I get something for sending you there. But it doesn't cost you anything extra. In fact, it costs you a little bit less than it would if you went to Games Workshop themselves. So if you want to buy an entire, 8 Redemptors for a ridiculous Redemptor army, you could absolutely do that. Thank you very much for watching. Feel free to click all the things, Patreon, subscribe, all that shit. Click it if you like, don't click it if you don't want to, and I will see you for the next one. Toodaloo.